Zelensky's a punk. If we cut off arms to him, we cut off. If we cut off
do you not think Zelensky should have a say? Sorry, can I just confirm?
I don't care if people agree with me. I don't care if people. I don't care if people agree with me or not. I don't care if people.
The point of principle here is that Russia invaded a sovereign.
Invest in what's happened to the Royal Navy and what's happened to your army, which are the two greatest in the world. You have so much investment you have today, and you can't afford it. You're not going to be able to have your public health system. You're not going to be able to have your retirement plan.
Wow, this was heated. Steve Bannon does not hold back and he absolutely schools this British journalist. And I agree with a lot of what he says. He says if the UK and Europe care so much about the Ukraine, then they can step up and pay. Then he has words of advice for us, which are, you need to worry about your own people before you worry about anybody else. He questioned why we are so obsessed with defending Ukraine's borders when we have a struggling economy. He's spot on when he says we live in a fantasy world if we think Russian tanks are going to roll through the streets of Germany and France and threaten Britain's borders. The liberal establishment in Britain cares more about the rest of the world than they do our own country. They have more interest in defending the Ukraine's borders than they do our own. That's why Labour MPs were outraged at a government proposal to spend British taxpayers' money on defence instead of foreign aid. These people see themselves as European or global citizens before they see themselves as British. That's a fact, and that goes for the Conservatives as much as it does Labour. They live in a fantasy world. Their beliefs are their religion. Trump is against globalism and all about nation first. Our establishment views that as blasphemy. Last week, Trump was showing the British Prime Minister the new statue of Churchill that they have in the White House's Oval Office, showing it to a British Prime Minister who removed a portrait of Churchill from his own office.
I'm pleased to say that the bust of one of the Prime Minister's greatest predecessors, Winston Churchill, is now back in the rightful place in the Oval Office, and we're very proud of it.
The British establishment is not living in the real world. Parliament's entire stance on the Ukraine is based on this fantastical dream of a united European state waging holy war against Russia to protect its liberal globalist values. Anyway, listen to this debate. Steve Bannon, like Trump, is all about America first and national pride. And it sounds like they are saying to us, why don't you make Britain great again? Put your national interests first. The British elite won't because they are fully signed up to the globalist agenda, which they will always put before our national interests.
Thank you so much, Liz. Well, I'm pleased to say joining me now is Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist to President Trump, of course, and now podcast host of Bannon's War Room. I know you've recently had JD Vance on your podcast. I'm pleased we've got you on because we're hoping you can help us get into the mind of Donald Trump. I want to ask you first about your comments. You said you described Friday's meeting as the perfect outcome. What did you mean by that?
Because we got Zelensky out of there with a no deal and ridiculous minerals deal. Zelensky's a punk. I find offensive your chyron that Zelensky's ready to deal with the United States. I think people to the right of President Trump and people around President Trump, maybe not inside the White House, are strongly advocating absolutely no security guarantee, no minerals deal. Call the bluff of the EU, call the bluff of the United Kingdom, call the bluff from Macron. Let you guys step up, which you haven't to date, and actually do your fair share, if you want to, in Ukraine. We've had it. We're done with it. There's too much blood has been spilled, too much destruction. We called this from the very beginning. Exactly what's going to happen. It's time now to cut our losses.
Isn't the perfect outcome peace, though? Doesn't that involve getting all the sides around the table?
Why does Zelensky have a say-so in that? If we cut off arms to him, we cut off. If we cut off arms.
Do you not think Zelensky should have a say? Sorry, can I just confirm? Do you not think Zelensky should have a say-so in the future of his own country?
No, I do not believe Zelensky. Because first off, he's 16%. He's not even democratically elected. Right now, if EU wants a part of the table, listen, if Zelensky wants a part of the table, have the United Kingdom step up, Have France step up. Van der Leyen is saying you're going to do $800 billion defense raise. Have the people in the United Kingdom should ask, can you send 30,000 troops? This is not about the quality of British troops. Your valor and courage is
given
unquestioned.
signals that we would put troops on the ground.
Your valor and courage is unquestioned. You're in financial distress right now. You're very close to having a sovereign debt crisis. You don't have the money. You're totally underwater. Your economy's not performing. And you live in this fantasy, both the Tories and the Labour Party, just like Macron, that you have unlimited resources to send to Ukraine. The Russian army in 3 years at 800,000 casualties has not taken Kharkiv, has not even gotten close to Kiev. They can't cross Poland. They can't go into Germany. You're living in a fantasy land. And somebody's got to talk some hard realities to the people of Europe of what you're actually about to take on. Zelensky is untrustworthy. He's a crook and a punk. And he showed what a punk he was in the Oval Office the other day. He should never be allowed back in. I don't think he should ever be allowed back in to the United States.
I think a lot of people would disagree with you on the point that President Zelensky is a crook and a punk. There were democratic elections.
I don't care if people agree with me. I don't care if people agree with me or not. I don't care if people agree.
The point of principle here is that Russia invaded a sovereign country.
We've sent $250 billion to Ukraine. $250 billion. President Trump says $350. $250. He says he can only account for $88 billion. We want a full investigation of where every penny went that the United States sent. And once that's done, you'll see why they're rated the third most corrupt country in the world. Not by war rooms.
Sorry. Are you saying that if Zelensky comes back, Donald Trump shouldn't do a deal with him? If President Zelensky comes back and presents?
No. Irrelevant. He had his shot. He showed what a punk he is. He had his shot. And this is not about saying thank you.
Do you think President Trump agrees with you on that? Do you think he is open?
I hope President Trump agrees with me on that. It's the right thing to do. Right now, Zelensky, if he crawled on his belly, it doesn't make any difference. He came over the other day when they told him time and time and time again, do not bring up a security guarantee. A security guarantee means a more American support of the military option and American troops, and that will never happen. The American people will never stand for it. And what did he do? He went and met with globalist Democrats and Republican senators at the Hay Adams Hotel beforehand. He came in, and from the entire 40 minutes, he was disrespectful. And this has nothing to do, the American people don't need thanks. We've been allies for the last 100 and some years. We've never asked the British people for thank you. We know you're an ally, okay? He didn't need to say thank you. What he needed to do was to sign the deal that, quite frankly, many people around President Trump thought was too nice to begin with. We don't need a rare earths deal. The United States doesn't need rare earths from Ukraine. That was a total gift to him and the Ukrainian people. He couldn't come across and sign the deal. 3 times he backed out of it. And he came there, and all he wanted to talk about is a security guarantee. But they told him, as a condition precedent to this deal, that will never be on the table. And he forced it, and they threw him out of the White House. This has never happened before in American history. A leader of a country got thrown out of the White House and told, get off the lot, because of his behavior. And I'm telling you, President Trump is a very gracious man, a very forgiving man, but there are people around President Trump, myself included, that are advocating take a very hard line and call the bluff of NATO, call the bluff of the EU, call the bluff of the United Kingdom and France. If you've got the money and you got the troops, let's see if you do it. I will guarantee you, every government that does that will be turfed out by their people because you're all broke.
We just have this from Reuters that the US and Ukraine are preparing to sign a minerals deal. So it sounds like it is on the table. An announcement this evening. I didn't say, by the way, I said people around President Trump are advocating not to do it. Like I said, this would be the 4th time that Ukraine Ukraine said that they're going to sign a minerals deal. Every time they get there, they want a security guarantee. They want more security guarantee. This just shows you that they broke Zelensky of what he was trying to do. But I still don't trust it because this is only a framework. This is not actually the deal itself. This is just a very general framework. The United States does not need rare earths from Kiev and from Ukraine. We don't need it. This is a gift to the Ukrainian people. It actually involves the United States, I think, way too much in the future reconstruction of the country, which I adamantly oppose. And I think people to the right of President Trump adamantly oppose. So this is not something I think should go down the path of, but it shows you how magnanimous President Trump is. Do you trust President Putin then?
No, I don't trust Putin. He's KGB. Of course, he's not trustworthy.
criticism of President Zelensky
the
from
rapprochement
the likes of you.
of the rapprochement of the United States with Russia breaks the control of the Chinese Communist Party with Persia and with Russia right now on the Eurasian landmass. It's a brilliant stroke. And the European Union is going to come along with it. You watch, they'll come along with it. And look, if part of that is this minerals deal to get it going, President Trump's very magnanimous. I would never do it. And I think people to the right of President Trump would say we should never do it. And that's why Zelensky should understand when he's dealing with President Trump, he's dealing with somebody that's trying to go out of his way to be a peacemaker, that there are many voices to the right of him of saying, cut it off. Let Europe, if NATO's such big shots and the EU are such big shots, they don't pay for the defense today, let them step up and let them underwrite the security in
We've committed to
Ukraine.
stepping up in the UK.
Excuse me?
2.5%. We've just committed to stepping up to 2.5% in the UK. So is that not a move in the right direction?
2.5% is nothing. 2.5% is nothing. And look at your combat capabilities. You guys are going, look, you're doing more than anybody else, but you're so far away from doing it. If you actually want to do this, we're at 3.5% of GDP. If you wanted to make up for all the years you didn't invest and what's happened to the Royal Navy and what's happened to your Army, which are the two greatest in the world, you have so much investment you have today, and you can't afford it. You're not going to be able to have your public health system. You're not going to be able to have your retirement plans, your pensions. You understand these are all trade-offs and hard trade-offs. You're in financial distress right now. It's arguable that the IMF could be stepping in to Great Britain in the next couple of years. Your bond market already turfed out, Liz Truss. You think you're out of that right now? You haven't looked at what's happening to the British economy. And you have to put that in context of stepping up for a massive defense increase.
Okay, I know you don't have much time, so I want to get through as much as we can. I want to ask you about J.D. Vance's comments last night, talking about 20,000 troops from some random country. I think you've made clear your views on British defence capabilities, but you know, what countries do you think he was talking about there?
Nobody's questioned the French in the British capabilities and the valor of their troops and the courage and the great. But if you look at NATO. Outside of the United Kingdom.
Specifically on J.D. Vance, what countries do you think he was talking about there?
I think J.D. Vance has gone out of his way to be gracious. I think he's a very gracious man. I think he's done a great job as vice president. The reality is,
about the UK and France.
The reality is that NATO, of which we're an allied partner. Remember, I was the lead dog in trying to get NATO up to 2% in the first term, of which they refused to do, only the UK and Poland. If you look at an entire NATO, I'm not sure you can put up 2 combat divisions to actually take on the Russians. The whole of NATO has faked this for decades and decades and decades. Even your own self-imposed 2%, very few people make. And when the British do more, it's like it's tremendous. But quite frankly, the EU can't really afford this. If you want to have everything else, given how leveraged you are, given the sovereign debt crises, I don't know, that Italy and France and Germany and Spain and Portugal and Greece and maybe the United Kingdom may all face, you're not facing economic reality. And right now, what President Trump is trying to say, if we put the guns down and we can get to peace, then we can start hammering swords into plowshares. And part of that is a rapprochement with the Russians, which I think he's doing a magnificent job of. And once you do that, you break them off from the Chinese Communist Party, a Chinese Communist Party that much of the British establishment is in business with.
Okay. I want to ask you, I mean, you've shown a clear interest in Europe as well, and we all know you were accused of making a Nazi salute at a Conservative gathering. Jordan Bardella, the man who at the top of the Le Pen's party, cancelled his scheduled speech as a result of that. He said it was a gesture referring to Nazi ideology. I know you've denied it, but what did you make of his comments?
Number one, as you know, I know you guys keep up with the news. Saturday night in Dallas, I talked to a huge group, Jewish group called Israel 365, to multiple standing ovations, because they know I'm probably the most pro-Israel person at any senior levels anywhere, except for President Trump. I said about Bardella, he's too big a pussy to run France. There's no chance that this guy would be able to take on and govern.
Can we just apologise for that language?
Well, I said it, right? And I said it when it first happened. This guy's a wimp. He's a boy toy, and he'll never be the head of France. And I've said this from the beginning, from when he first went on. He's such a gutless wimp. To kowtow to the mainstream media with something with such a blatant lie shows you he's not man enough to govern a great nation like France.
Okay, well, you've also shown an interest in British politics and in the likes of Maurice Glassman, Blue Labour. Is that a sort of part of the Labour Party that you're going to be more involved with?
I don't know if involved with. I'm quite fascinated with Lord Glassman and Blue Labor. I met with him in Washington, D.C. at length. I've gone through all his writings. I think some of the things he stands for and Blue Labor stands for is actually extraordinary, very close to the kind of the populist nationalism that we propose in the United States. And quite frankly, we're winning elections on that. And you see right now, everybody from Sherrod Brown to Fetterman to Ro Khanna, that kind of populist part of the Democratic Party tends to agree with us on economic policy. So no, I think there's a lot there. And of course, I'm a Nigel Farage guy and believe in reform. But I think what Blue Labor has is some of it's very interesting, particularly the way it ties together with Catholic social thought.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's all you've got time for.